After falling for a long time, Gandalf finally lands in a lake of water. The Balrog, fire quenched, tries to escape because he lost his main offensive weapon. Gandalf chases it out of necessity so he can get out. They emerge on top of the mountain, fight with the Balrog's fire light. Gandalf slays the Balrog, joining some pretty elite company, and he strays into darkness out of thought and time, and he was sent back. But how and by whom? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aude and Tulava, where we are walking our way through Tolkien's Legendarium, looking for new insights and a greater understanding of the works we all love. Today, we're continuing through Chapter 5 of Book 3, The White Rider. As we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, grab a version of the books you don't have in the description below if you'd like to support the channel that way. I also have a couple great deals for you in the description. You can get 15% off artisanal tea and coffee from Chapters Tea and Coffee. And also you get the friends and family discount when you refinance or purchase a new home with Rocket Mortgage. Links are in the description. All right, let's dive in. We ended with Gandalf giving us really not a lot of insight into what the Ents will do. He kind of trailed off, then bowed his head and just sat there, which is not super helpful. The others looked at him. A gleam of sun through fleeting clouds fell on his hands, which lay now upturned on his lap. They seemed to be filled with light as a cup is with water. At last he looked up and gazed straight at the sun. "The morning is wearing away," he said. "Soon we must go." "Do we go to find our friends and to see Treebeard?" asked Aragorn. "No," said Gandalf. "That is not the road that you must take. I have spoken words of hope, but only of hope. Hope is not victory. War is upon us and all our friends, a war in which only the use of the ring could give us surety of victory. It fills me with great sorrow and great fear, for much shall be destroyed and all may be lost. I am Gandalf, Gandalf the White, but black is mightier still." Again, we get another use of the word seemed. Gandalf's hands seemed like they were filled with light. It's a really great word usage. One, it's way cooler sounding than it looked like his hands were filled with light, like water. But secondly, it leaves the possibility that it's true. It didn't just look like it, it seemed like it. It could be a trick of the eyes, but it could also be exactly what they're seeing. Maybe Gandalf really is sitting there just holding light. Maybe we really are looking at this, elevated being doing that. So it's time to go, and they're going to find help Merry and Pippin, right? Wrong. That's not where they need to go. War is brewing, and helping the hobbits won't do anything for the war. It's not exactly a nice thought. War is upon them all, not some, all of their friends. Near the end of the Tale of Years, we hear how Lorien gets attacked multiple times. The Elven Kingdom in Mirkwood is assailed, and Erebor, or the Lonely Mountain from The Hobbit, is attacked by Sauron's forces as well. That's not to mention the fighting already happening and about to happen in Rohan and everything that's going to happen in Gondor. No one is going to have a good time. And to make matters worse, the only thing that will make Gandalf feel confident of victory is using the ring. The ring, they spent hours and hours talking about how bad it is and why they can't use it. Not even shouldn't, but can't. Luckily for everyone in Middle-earth, the ring has gone past their grip by this time, so they couldn't even be tempted. And to make things even more worser, lots of things they love will be destroyed, and it's possible everything could just be lost. And though we've had this, burst of confidence and hope because Gandalf is back, it might not be enough because even he says he's just not strong enough. It's honestly a bit of a downer of a speech from Gandalf, but it was always that way. Elrond knew. Yet such is oft the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. It always had to be people who were less strong. So next we see Gandalf look to the east, but shaking his head. "No," he said in a soft voice, "it has gone beyond our reach. Of that at least let us be glad. We can no longer be tempted to use the ring. We must go down to face a peril near despair. Yet that deadly peril is removed." This is just another reminder of the danger the ring poses to them, especially Gandalf and Aragorn. Gandalf said way back in the Fellowship in Shadow of the Past, the ring was dangerous to him because he would take it up to try and help people because of his pity for them. So the breaking of the Fellowship was really turned to good, which we see him reference in this next section. He turned. "Come, Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he said. "Do not regret your choice in the valley of the Immenmuil, nor call it a vain pursuit. You chose amid doubts the path that seemed right. The choice was just, and it has been rewarded. For so we have met in time who otherwise might have met too late. But the quest of your companions is over. Your next journey is marked by your given word. You must go to Edoras and seek out Theoden in his hall. for you are needed. The light of Andoril must now be uncovered in the battle for which it has so long waited. There is war in Rohan, and worse, evil. It goes ill with Theoden. So even though Aragorn thought all his choices went wrong, Gandalf here lets him know his decisions have been good. Not only good, but they've been rewarded. They've met Gandalf before it was too late. And we know how the story goes. Them being in Rohan helps get rid of a massive army that would have been at Gondor's back. I never fully understood how important the comment at the end really was until, honestly, just now. It goes ill with Theoden. I think I always kind of just pass by this comment. Things are bad in Rohan. Cool. But the thing is, as usual, Gandalf knows a lot more than we do and probably more than we would expect also. So not only does he know, which we can surmise later, that Wormtongue is a big jerk and not helping things with Theoden, but today is also March 1st. Theodred, Theoden's son, died on February 25th, 6 days ago. I'd be willing to bet Gandalf knows something of this. It's mentioned a couple times moving forward, but never really explained until Unfinished Tales came out. It's just, another layer upon layer that the professor weaved into his story, and I just really love it. You can always go a little bit deeper. So it's time for them to go and see Theoden. Gandalf asks if they will go with him. Yes, we will set out together, said Aragorn, but I do not doubt that you will come there before me if you wish. He rose and looked long at Gandalf. The others gazed at them in silence as they stood there, facing one another. The gray figure of the man, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, was tall and stern as stone, his hand upon the hilt of his sword. He looked as if some king out of the mists of the sea had stepped upon the shores of lesser men. Before him stooped the old figure, white, shining now as if with some light kindled within, bent, laden with years, but holding a power beyond the strength of kings. Do I not say truly, Gandalf, said Aragorn at last, that you could go whithersoever you wished quicker than I? And this I also say, you are our captain and our banner. The Dark Lord has 9, but we have one mightier than they, the White Rider. He has passed through the fire and the abyss, and they shall fear him. We will go where he leads. This picture of stern, stony Aragorn facing tiny, shining Gandalf is awesome. It's another way for Tolkien to bring in his larger legendarium. Aragorn, the true king of Gondor. Ancestors of Númenóreans who built wonders out of stone after stepping out on the sea. Gandalf, laden with tens of thousands of years of age, shining from a power within that hasn't been fully released yet. I mean, there's the whole Ainulindale to explain Gandalf and the fall of Númenor to fully explain Aragorn. Just a cool couple hundred pages that I'll basically tell you to go read because it's honestly beyond the scope of this particular video. The second paragraph really shows us the understanding, call it power, that Aragorn has. He sees what Gandalf has become. He knows that Gandalf is more powerful than he was before. He may not know that Gandalf can't use his full power in a way that would, just destroy his enemies, but he knows it's there. I wish I could remember what I thought when I first read this section. It must have just been kind of crazy. This wizard comes back to life and shiny, and somehow he's more powerful than the 9 Nazgul, who we've seen to be the crazy powerful and able to make people afraid just by, standing there. But Aragorn sees it and knows. He knows who to follow. So moving forward, Gandalf and Aragorn are ready to go. They know what's on the line here. Legolas, being an elf and not always, I would say, having the best sense of urgency, insists on knowing what happened to Gandalf when he fell in Moria. Now, this is a long story, so I'll kind of cut some of it, probably most of Gimli's interruptions. Long time I fell, he said at last, slowly, as if thinking back with difficulty. Long I fell, and he fell with me. His fire was about me. I was burned. Then we plunged into the deep water, and all was dark. Cold it was as the tide of death. Almost it froze my heart. Thither I came at last to the uttermost foundations of stone. He was with me still, his fire was quenched, but now he was a thing of slime, stronger than a strangling snake. We fought far under the living earth where time is not counted. Ever he clutched me, and ever I hewed him, till at last he fled into dark tunnels. They were not made by Durin's folk, Gimli, son of Glóin. Far, far below the deepest delvings of the dwarves, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day. In that despair, my enemy was my only hope. I pursued him, clutching at his heel. Thus he brought me back at last to the secret ways of Khazad-dûm. Too well he knew them all. Ever up now he went until we came to the endless stair. From the lowest dungeon to the highest peak it climbed, descending an unbroken spiral in many thousand steps, until it issued at last in Durin's tower carved in the living rock of Zaraxigil, the pinnacle of the Silvertine. There upon Celebdil was a lonely window in the snow, and before it lay a narrow space, a dizzy eyrie above the mists of the world. The sun shone fiercely there, but all below was wrapped in cloud. Out he sprang, and even as I came behind, he burst into new flame. There was none to see, or perhaps in after ages songs would still be sung of the battle of the peak. Suddenly Gandalf laughed. But what would they say in song? Those that looked up from afar thought that the mountain was crowned with storm. Thunder they heard, and lightning, they said, smote upon Celebdil, and leaped back broken into tongues of fire. Is that not enough? A great smoke rose about us, vapor and steam. Ice fell like rain. I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high places, and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. Then darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time, and I wandered far on roads that I will not tell. Naked I was sent back for a brief time until my task is done, and naked I lay upon the mountaintop. The tower behind me was crumbled into dust, the window gone, the ruined stair was choked with burned and broken stone. I was alone, forgotten, without escape upon the hard horn of the world. There I lay staring upward, while the stars wheeled over, and each day was as long as a life age of the earth. Faint to my ears came the gathered rumor of all lands, the springing and the dying, the song and the weeping, and the slow, everlasting groan of overburdened stone. And so at the last, Gwaihir, the Windlord, found me again, and he took me up and bore me away. Yeah, I did a terrible job of cutting this down, but I think it was so worth it. I'm sure when Corey Olson gets this section in 10 years, he'll have a lot more to say than I do, but there really is one main thing to zero in on. But let's kind of set the scene. After falling for a long time, Gandalf finally lands in a lake of water. The Balrog, fire quenched, tries to escape because he lost his main offensive weapon. Gandalf chases it out of necessity so he can get out. They emerge on top of the mountain, fight with the Balrog's fire light. Gandalf slays the Balrog, joining some pretty elite company, and he strays into darkness out of thought and time, and he was sent back. But how and by whom? For the longest time, I thought it was the Valar, probably Manwë, that sent him back. Aside from the draft of a letter from Tolkien that we'll get to in a second, and the fact that we've already discussed how anyone being below Eru can't truly create things, just subcreate, there is a little clue in the text. Gandalf strayed out of thought and time. Now, I don't have a full breakdown of the word roots or anything like that, but this sounds like the elves going to the halls of Mandos, but, more. The halls of Mandos are still in Aman. They still measured time there. Where would time not be measured? Well, outside of time. Where would the only place be that would be outside of time? So a different dimension that can look at the Middle-earth timeline as a whole and not have to travel along the timeline. Some might call that, you could say, a heaven of sorts, but the big thing is that this is where Eru is, or where he chooses to inhabit, I guess you could say. I think that is a pretty big indication that Eru is the one who sent Gandalf back. And then there's the letter I mentioned. It's a draft to Robert Murray in 1954. It's letter 156. So here, Tolkien is talking about Gandalf. For all he could know at that moment, he was the only person who could direct the resistance to Sauron successfully, and all his mission was vain. He was handing over to the authority that ordained the rules and giving up personal hope of success. Of course, like everything Tolkien wrote, this has subtext and intermeaning all over the place. But the important part, at least for this discussion, is the authority that ordained the rules. That can only be one being, Eru Ilúvatar. And like usual, thank you, Hammond and Skull, for putting me on to that particular letter, as I wouldn't have remembered it myself. If you haven't picked up their Reader's Companion, you really need to. There's a link in the description for that too. As usual, Gandalf is rescued by Gwaihir, the Windlord, coolest eagle you'll ever meet. He gets to Lothlorien a few days after the company leaves and gets some messages from Galadriel to give to the three hunters. To Aragorn, I was bidden to say this. Where now are the Dunedain, Elisar, Elisar? Why do thy kinsfolk wander afar? Near is the hour when the lost should come forth, and the grey company ride from the north. But dark is the path appointed for thee. The dead watch the road that leads to the sea. To Legolas she sent this word. Legolas Greenleaf long under tree. Enjoy thou hast lived, beware of the sea. If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. So, poetry, woohoo! Both verses generally follow iambic tetrameter, stress, unstress, with 4 metric feet per line. They're not as perfectly iambic as the verses the hobbits give us, the hobbit meter, but they flow pretty well. The verse for Legolas always seemed pretty obvious to me. He's been, happy in the woods thus far, but once he hears the gulls on the shore of the sea, he'll be, not content in the woods again. So, I don't know, maybe somebody else has something way better for that, not me. Aragorn's verse is a little bit more complex. Since we've already read the book, we know better what this is referring to, and I think that puts us more in the mind of Aragorn. He probably knew what this verse meant. The first 4 lines are all referencing Aragorn's kin, the Dunedain of the north, the descendants of Arnor and Numenor. The Dunedain will soon ride from the north for the appointed time or battle or whatever. Lines 5 and 6 refer to the paths of the dead. The dead watch the road that leads to the sea. This path goes through the White Mountains from north to south, and we'll learn more about the whole situation in, Return of the King when Aragorn shares the foretelling from Malbeth the seer. Malbeth basically said the heir of Isildur would travel the paths of the dead in great need. Aragorn knows this prophecy, or at least I would assume, and the message from Galadriel is just confirming for him that he is that heir and this is the time for him to use the paths of the dead. It's just another way Tolkien builds the story around the larger legendarium, but also how he kind of retcons things in. I haven't read all the history of Middle-earth yet, but I could totally see this being something he, discovered and had to fix some of the larger works to kind of fit in it. Now, of course, Gimli is sad that Gandalf didn't have a message for him from Galadriel, but he just got distracted. To Gimli, son of Glóin, she said, give his lady's greeting. Lockbearer, wherever thou goest, my thought goes with thee, but have a care to lay thine axe to the right tree. In happy hour you have returned to us, Gandalf, cried the dwarf, capering as he sang loudly in the strange dwarf tongue. Come, come, he shouted, swinging his axe. Since Gandalf's head is now sacred, let us find one that is right to cleave. That will not be far to seek, said Gandalf, rising from his seat. Come, we have spent all the time that is allowed to a meeting of parted friends. Now there is need of haste. Now, there's nothing particularly deep here. Gimli's happy that Galadriel is thinking of him. I'm sure there's some way to tie this to the ancient animosity between dwarves and elves. Maybe something about receiving love from a perceived enemy and how that could change you. I don't know. There's some Catholic undertones to that line of thought, I think. I'll let you ponder that kind of as I don't really have a full thought on it. Just this kind of germ, I guess you could say. So they need to get going and hurry up, but walking all the way doesn't seem to fit the urgency. I shall not walk. Time presses, said Gandalf. Then lifting up his head, he gave a long whistle. So clear and piercing was the note that the others stood amazed to hear such a sound come from those old bearded lips. 3 times he whistled, and then faint and far off it seemed to them that they heard the whinny of a horse borne up from the plains upon the eastern wind. They waited, wondering. Before long there came the sound of hoofs, at first hardly more than a tremor of the ground, perceptible only to Gandalf as he lay upon the grass, then growing steadily louder and clearer to a quick beat. There is more than one horse coming, said Aragorn. Certainly, said Gandalf. We are too great a burden for one. There are 3, said Legolas, gazing out over the plain. See how they run? There's Hasufel, and there's my friend Arad beside him. But there is another that strides ahead, a very great horse. I have not seen his like before. Nor will you again, said Gandalf. That is Shadowfax. He is the chief of the Mearas, lords of horses, and not even Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on a better. Does he not shine like silver and run as smoothly as a swift stream? He has come for me, the horse of the White Rider. We are going to battle together. We finally get to meet Shadowfax in person here. Gandalf calls him one of the Mearas. These horses are descendants from Felaroth, the horse that was tamed by Eorl the Young and ridden to the defense of Gondor. These horses are strong and intelligent. Looking at the Tale of Years, we can understand a bit how fast Shadowfax is. On September 23rd, he left Rohan with Gandalf, and on the 29th, he reaches Bree. I'm not sure exactly how many miles that is, but I'm pretty sure it would take most horses more than 6 days to traverse it. Of course, Legolas now understands the whinnying of the horses they heard the night before. They were happy to see Shadowfax. But it's time for them to start their ride. They've spent possibly too much time talking, though it was helpful, at least for us readers, to get a better grasp of what's going on and a little bit of foreshadowing for the future. For many hours, they rode on through the meads and riverlands. Often the grass was so high that it reached above the knees of the riders, and their steeds seemed to be swimming in a gray-green sea. They came upon many hidden pools and broad acres of sedge waving above wet and treacherous bogs. But Shadowfax found the way, and the other horses followed in his swath. Slowly the sun fell from the sky down into the west. Looking out over the great plain far away, the riders saw it for a moment like a red fire sinking into the grass. Low upon the edge of sight, shoulders of the mountains glinted red upon either side. A smoke seemed to rise up and darken the sun's disk to the hue of blood, as if it had kindled the grass as it passed down under the rim of earth. I don't really have much to say about this section. It's just beautiful. This is one of those sections, though it's not quite as long as some others, that some people seem to not like. He spends a decently long paragraph just talking about the environment they're riding through. But the imagery, I mean, it's just amazing. The sun setting like a red fire sinking into the grass. Not to mention the alliteration. There's steeds swimming in a gray-green sea. Again, this alliteration is just amazing. Something more practical to note, which will make sense in the last section we look at, they're basically traveling straight, like due south from Fangorn to Edoras. So they're seeing the sun setting right in the Gap of Rohan, speaking of alliteration, framed by two different mountain ranges with grass plains in front of them. But as we see at the end of that section, there's a smoke rising. There lies the Gap of Rohan, said Gandalf. It is now almost due west of us. That way lies Isengard. I see a great smoke, said Legolas. What may that be? Battle and war, said Gandalf. Ride on! Now the smoke they see can't be the smoke from Isengard during the Ent attack, as they won't reach until sundown of the following day, March 2nd. But there has been battle at the Fords of Isen, and there could have been, maybe some explosives used there too. And as it happened a few days ago, there could be burning their bodies or something like that. Plus, Isengard probably puts out smoke regularly as well, like the mill or something in Hobbiton. But that is where we will leave the three hunters. Well, I guess four now. Next video, we will start the King of the Golden Hall, the next chapter. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Buy a new version of the book you don't already have in the description, and don't forget to claim your 15% off Chapters Tea and Coffee or your friends and family discount on closing costs with Rocket Mortgage. And until next time, always remember, Aude and Tulava, they shall come again.